deafening. Bright lights washed over me, and the heavy, cold weight of the award in my hands should have been the proudest moment of my life. My heart raced, my palms sweaty from gripping the microphone. "Thank you," I managed to say into the mic, my voice trembling but steady enough to carry over the room. "This means more than I can put into words." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us, where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I scanned the crowd instinctively, searching for the familiar faces I dreamed of seeing tonight. Mom's proud smile, Dad's approving nod, maybe even my brother's teasing smirk. But there was nothing. Not a single person from my family. Just rows of strangers and polite claps from people who barely knew me. My chest tightened. I told myself they'd come late, that maybe traffic had delayed them. But I knew better. An hour ago, a mutual friend had sent me a photo that burned into my mind like acid. My entire family, laughing on a sunny beach somewhere out of state, drinks in hand. My brother holding up a peace sign, Mom in her favorite sun hat, Dad holding a cocktail like they didn't have a care in the world. They didn't forget. They just chose not to be here. When the ceremony ended, I stepped off stage into the shadows at the side of the hall, my heels clicking against the polished floor. My throat felt tight, my stomach twisting. All I wanted was to get outside and breathe. That's when I felt it, a warm hand brushing against mine. I turned sharply, startled, but all I caught was the back of a tall figure in a charcoal suit disappearing into the crowd. In my palm, something small and cold rested against my skin. A key, a simple brass key with a small tag that read, in neat handwriting, "Welcome home." I froze, my pulse hammered in my ears. Before I could process what just happened, my phone buzzed violently in my clutch. I pulled it out and my breath caught. 78 missed calls. Every single one from Mom, Dad, and my brother. My hands shook. What could have possibly happened between that beach photo and now? I stepped into the chilly night air, my mind spinning, my heels crunching against the sidewalk. Across the street, a black SUV idled, tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. For a brief moment, the passenger window rolled halfway down, and a pair of sharp, watchful eyes met mine. The car didn't move. Neither did I. My phone buzzed again. A new text from Mom. "Come home, now." But in my other hand, that brass key felt heavier than my award. And I had a feeling, deep in my gut, that whatever door it unlocked was going to change everything. The street lamps cast long, fractured shadows across the pavement as I stood frozen, the brass key biting into my palm. The award in my other hand suddenly felt like a meaningless trinket, something I'd once thought mattered, but now was just weight I wanted to throw away. That black SUV still hadn't moved. I could feel its engine rumble faintly through the cool night air. Every instinct told me to walk, no, run, in the opposite direction, but my phone buzzed again, pulling me back into the moment. "Dad, answer your phone." "Mom, it's serious." "Ethan, my brother. Pick up. Now." My thumb hovered over the call button. My family hadn't spoken to me in weeks except for the occasional obligatory text. And now, suddenly, they were desperate to reach me? My chest tightened, not from fear but from something sharper. Resentment. I slipped the key into my clutch and started walking, my heels tapping a steady rhythm on the concrete. The SUV's engine revved softly, my eyes flicked toward it. The window rolled down another inch. A man's silhouette leaned forward, his face still shadowed, but I could feel the weight of his gaze. I quickened my pace toward the side street, the city's noise muffling as I turned the corner. My phone rang again, and this time I swiped to answer before I could overthink it. "What?" My voice came out colder than I intended. "Madison," Mom's voice cracked, a sound I'd never heard from her before. "You need to come home right now." "Why? So you can leave again?" I shot back. "Or maybe so you can tell me in person why a trip was more important than—" "Madison, please," she interrupted, urgency edging her tone. "Something's happened. It's about the house." I stopped dead in my tracks. "What about the house?" There was a muffled sound, like someone grabbing the phone from her. Then Dad's voice came on, low and clipped. "Who gave you a key?" The air around me felt suddenly heavier. "What?" "The key," he repeated, his words sharp. "You didn't get that from us. Who gave it to you?" My mouth went dry. Why does it matter? You don't understand, he said, his voice strained, almost angry. That key, it doesn't belong to you, it's... The line went dead. I stared at my phone screen, my reflection warped in the glass. My pulse was a steady roar in my ears. Whoever had slipped me that key wasn't just playing a game. They knew something. Something my family didn't want me to know. And right now, I wanted answers more than I wanted to breathe. I turned back toward the main street, but the SUV was gone. Instead, on the sidewalk in front of me, a single envelope lay face down, the paper rippling slightly in the breeze. I bent down slowly and picked it up. My name was scrawled across the front in black ink. No return address, no markings. Just my name. The envelope was sealed, but faintly I could feel the hard, flat edge of what was inside. Not paper, not money, something else entirely. I glanced up and down the street. Not a soul in sight. The temptation to rip it open right there gnawed at me. But so did the thought that I was already in way over my head. Still, my fingers were already tearing at the edge. The flap tore open with a soft rip, the sound loud in the stillness of the street. I slid the contents into my hand, a small laminated photograph and a folded piece of stiff paper. The photo stopped me cold. It was my family, not the laughing, sunlit version I'd seen from their trip earlier. This was different. They were seated around our dining table, except it wasn't our dining table anymore. The chairs, the tablecloth, even the lighting were different, like it was staged somewhere else entirely. Their faces were pale, tense, eyes darting at something outside the frame. My father's hand rested flat on the table, his knuckles white. Mom's gaze was cast downward, her lips pressed into a hard line. My brother sat rigid, his jaw tight, shoulders squared as if bracing for something. In the lower right corner of the photo, a faint reflection in a glass cabinet caught my attention. A figure, tall, wearing that same charcoal suit I'd seen earlier tonight. My breath hitched. Whoever slipped me the key had been in the room with them. I unfolded the stiff paper next. It wasn't a letter, it was a floor plan. Not of our current home, but of the house we'd lived in when I was a child. The one we'd moved out of suddenly, without much explanation, when I was 12. Rooms were marked in bold red ink. One upstairs bedroom had a circle drawn around it, the words "check inside" scrawled next to it. I stood there in the cold, clutching the floor plan like it might disappear if I blinked. My phone buzzed again. This time, a video call from Ethan. Against my better judgment, I answered. His face filled the screen, eyes wide, voice low and fast. "Maddie, listen to me. If anyone gave you something tonight, you can't..." He stopped abruptly. His gaze shifted as though someone else had walked into the room. His voice dropped even lower. "They'll hear me. Just don't go there. You understand? Don't..." The screen went black. My skin prickled. The air felt charged, like the moments before a storm breaks. A cold gust swept down the street, rattling a loose sign against the brick wall nearby. I glanced around, half expecting to see the SUV again, but the road was empty. The floor plan and photo were still in my hand. I could shove them back into the envelope, go home, pretend none of this happened. But the truth was already under my skin. The key was still in my clutch, warm from where I'd been holding it earlier. Something had happened to my family, something ugly. And whatever it was, they were more afraid of me knowing the truth than they were of facing it themselves. I tucked the envelope inside my jacket, squared my shoulders, and made a decision. I was going back to that house, not the one they lived in now. The old one, the one they never wanted to talk about. And I was going tonight. The city's glow faded behind me as I drove toward the outskirts, my award lying forgotten on the passenger seat. The streets grew quieter, darker, the hum of streetlights replaced by the low, steady rhythm of my car's engine. It had been years since I'd been anywhere near that neighborhood. As a kid, I'd never questioned why we left so suddenly. My parents had framed it as an opportunity, a better school district, a bigger backyard, more privacy. But now, retracing the old route in the dead of night, I could see the lie for what it was. The houses here were older, tucked behind overgrown hedges and half-collapsed fences. Memories stirred like dust in the back of my mind. Riding my bike down these cracked sidewalks, hearing my mom call me in for dinner, my dad's voice low and sharp during late-night arguments. When I finally pulled up to the old house, my hands tightened around the steering wheel. It looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling, and one of the shutters hung crooked, swaying gently in the breeze. The porch light was off, but a faint glow seeped out from somewhere inside, as if a single lamp had been left burning. My pulse quickened. I killed the engine and sat for a moment, letting the silence close in. The key felt heavier than ever in my jacket pocket. I stepped out into the cold, gravel crunching under my boots, and climbed the creaking porch steps. The door's lock was old. I remembered it sticking sometimes. But when I slid the key in, it turned without resistance. The click of the latch echoed unnaturally loud. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and something else. Metallic. The living room was almost bare, stripped of the furniture I remembered. The walls were a dull, faded beige, but faint outlines remained where pictures had once hung. I shut the door softly behind me, my footsteps muffled on the worn carpet. Every creak of the floorboards made me pause and listen. The glow I'd seen from outside came from the kitchen, an old desk lamp perched on the counter, its warm pool of light falling across a stack of papers. I moved closer, my fingers brushing the edges of the documents. Property deeds, bank statements, all with my father's signature. And then, tucked beneath them, a photograph that made my throat tighten. It was me, sitting in that same upstairs bedroom circled on the floor plan. I was maybe 8 years old, wearing a blue hoodie, staring straight at the camera with an expression I couldn't read now. Behind me, in the shadowed corner of the room, a figure stood, blurry but tall. Watching, I froze, my skin prickling. I didn't remember this photo being taken. From somewhere above me, a faint thump broke the silence. My head snapped up toward the staircase. I shouldn't go up there. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but my feet moved anyway, slow and deliberate, the old stairs groaning, under my weight. Halfway up, I glanced toward the wall where the old family photos used to hang, now replaced by faint rectangular patches, the nail holes still visible. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched out, dim and narrow. That circled bedroom was at the far end, the door slightly ajar. I reached for the knob. The smell hit me first, not just dust, but something faintly damp and sharp, like old metal and mildew. The room was almost empty, except for a single chair in the center and an old trunk pushed against the far wall. I stepped inside, my shadow spilling across the floor. My fingers hovered over the trunk's latch, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Before I could open it, a voice from the hallway made me freeze. "You weren't supposed to find this." My blood turned cold. The voice was male, low, controlled, but laced with something I couldn't place. Guilt? Anger? Both? I turned slowly. A man stood in the hallway, just outside the pool of light spilling from the room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing that same charcoal suit I'd seen earlier tonight, the same one reflected in the photograph with my family. My fingers tightened around the trunk's latch. "Who are you?" My voice was steady, but my throat felt tight. He stepped into view, the dim light revealing a face both unfamiliar and unsettlingly familiar. The shape of his jaw, the green eyes, something in them felt like looking into a distorted mirror. "I'm someone your parents hoped you'd never meet," he said evenly. "And that key? It was supposed to bring you here when you were ready, not tonight." My heart hammered. "Ready for what?" Instead of answering, he glanced down at the trunk. "Open it. You'll understand." Every muscle in my body screamed not to obey, but my curiosity was a stronger force now. My thumb flicked the latch. The lid groaned open, releasing a stale, cold breath of air. Inside were stacks of old VHS tapes, each labeled in my father's handwriting. Dates, years worth of them, going back to when I was a child. Beneath them, folders thick with photographs and typewritten pages. I picked up the top folder and flipped it open. My stomach lurched. It was filled with photos of me, every school year, every sports event, every time I was at the park with friends. But these weren't taken by my parents. The angles were wrong, the distance too far. Some were blurry, as if taken in a hurry. And in almost every one, somewhere in the background, that same man was there, watching. I looked up at him sharply. "You've been following me my entire life." "Protecting you," he corrected, his tone clipped. "That's not protection," I snapped. "That's—" "Ask them," he cut in, his voice suddenly sharp. "Ask your parents why they moved you from this house. Ask why they never told you who I was. Ask them why they made you believe you were safe when you weren't." My phone buzzed violently in my pocket. I pulled it out. Dad's name lit up the screen. I answered, my voice shaking with fury. I'm at the old house. With him. Now tell me the truth. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Maddie, leave. Right now. He's dangerous. The man's expression hardened. Dangerous? He let out a bitter laugh. I kept your daughter alive when you were too busy protecting your image to protect her. What is he talking about? I demanded. Dad's voice cracked, something I'd never heard before. When you were a kid, we got involved with people we shouldn't have. This house, it was their meeting place. And you? He stopped himself, then pushed the words out. You saw something you weren't supposed to. We thought if we moved, if we cut ties, the man in front of me finished the sentence for him. She'd be safe. But they didn't cut ties. They made deals. They traded trust for comfort. My hands trembled. So you've been what? Watching me all these years in case they came back? He didn't answer directly. You won an award tonight? You think that's what your family's angry about? Number. They're angry because someone else saw you on that stage. Someone who remembers. And now they're desperate to pull you back under their roof. Not to protect you, but to control the damage. Dad's voice came again through the phone. Urgent. Do not listen to him. He's twisting. The man stepped closer, his gaze locked on mine. They left you tonight because the less they were seen with you, the better. The trip? Just an excuse. And now that you've got that key, you have more power than you realize. My grip tightened on the phone. Why give me the key at all? Because, he said quietly, this house and everything in it belongs to you. It always has. They signed it over years ago but never told you. These tapes, these records, they're proof, not just of the house but of what they did. I stood there, the weight of the truth pressing in. My family, the same people who'd laughed on a beach instead of sitting in the front row for me, had spent years burying lies under the guise of protection. I looked down at the folder in my hands, at the deeds, the documents, the evidence that could blow their carefully constructed world apart. The phone was still in my ear, Dad's voice breaking through. Maddie, whatever you think you're doing, don't. You'll ruin us. A cold calm settled over me. Maybe you've been ruining yourselves all along. I hung up. The man stepped aside, giving me space to leave with whatever I wanted. My fingers brushed the brass key again as I tucked the folder under my arm. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but for the first time in years, I knew one thing for certain. The next time my family called, it wouldn't be me who was desperate to answer. And as I stepped out into the night, the porch light flickered on, bathing the front yard in pale gold. Somewhere behind me,